the mob. All right, let's shift gears here to another topic, homosexuality. Do you believe it's a sin?
I'm not as judgmental about that because of probably because of my medical background. So I don't see it as in that simplistic terms. I think it's a complex issue to decide whether it's sin or other problems with the way people are born. It's to me too complex to be to give an answer as simple as that.
Do you believe that God says it's a sin?
Well, I believe a lot of people understand it that way, but I think everybody's God's child too. So I have trouble with that.
All right. Well, actually, everyone's made in the image of God, but not everyone's a child of God. Some are children of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jesus says, by the way, in John 8:44, where he's arguing with some people who say he's not God. He says, well, sure, you believe I'm not God because your father's the devil. All right. Now, related to this homosexual issue, you said in one of the debates, I believe, that the Clinton don't ask, don't tell policy in the military is, quote, a decent policy, unquote. Why wouldn't you say this as a Christian? Although I think in part you've made me understand why you wouldn't have said this. Why wouldn't you say this and say, no, homosexuals, adulterers, other unrepentant sinners in these kinds of categories are not decent people. They are people with flawed characters, and to the extent humanly possible, you would, as president, seek to bar people of poor and bad character from our military. Why wouldn't you say that?
Well, because I think for every homosexual problem that we have in the military, we have a heterosexual problem in the military.
I bar them both. That's what I'm saying. Bar them both.
But we're only talking about, I mean, if we have a heterosexual that's visiting the prostitutes on the basis, sometimes we set up the prostitutes for them, and that to me is so disgraceful. So I don't see it as being all one-sided. I think it's for everyone. I think one of the biggest problems we're facing in the military right now is young women in the military, and then we end up with pregnancies in the military. And I see that as a heterosexual problem, and I bet you financially that's as big a burden on us as any homosexual problems that we have.
All right, well, I anticipated your response, I think, by saying, look, I'm guessing, without even asking Ron Paul, that you believe that people in our armed forces, again, to the extent humanly possible that you can determine it before they're in the armed forces, that you believe, yes, we should have a military of people with good moral character. That being the case, by the way, George Washington signed an order drumming out of the Continental Army a person who was accused of trying to commit homosexual sodomy. So if you believe, yes, we should have a military made up of people with good character, and by the way, you probably know, I'm sure you do, we're taking more and more people into our military who had previous criminal records that barred them from the military. Why wouldn't you say, yeah, we'll try to stop anyone from getting in the military who's a homosexual, who is an adulterer, who is a fornicator, and then other categories that indicate a character flaw. Why shouldn't we try to do that?
Looking at it in protecting the military, if they're going to perform their services and they're imperfect, because we're all imperfect and we all sin. So if the heterosexual or the homosexual sins, that to me is a category dealing with their own soul. Since we can't have only perfect people go in the military, I want to separate the two because I don't want to know the heterosexual flaws nor the homosexual flaws, and that's why I guess I got into some trouble with some of the civil libertarians when I said I don't have any problem with don't ask, don't tell, because I sort of think that, for the practicality of running a military, I just as soon not know every serious thing that any heterosexual did or any homosexual did, and that those flaws have to do with all our flaws because of each and every one of us have those imperfections, and we all are sinners.
Well, we're all sinners, but some people do work harder at their sin than others. Some are repentant sinners and fighting their sin, and others, like unrepentant homosexuals who are parading down Main Street saying, that they're proud that they're homosexuals. These are not people that are merely sinners. But how do we find out, if you do share my idea that, yes, of course, we should have people in the military of good moral character, how do we find out before they go in if they, in fact, are of good moral character? Better to find out before than after they're in, isn't it?
Well, I think it's virtually impossible if you're looking for perfection, and good moral character means that maybe you're looking for perfection. Then you have to define good moral character.
Sure.
And that means that people don't lie, cheat, steal, and murder, and they don't beat their wives, and they've taken care of their kids.
Okay.
And so if you can find people like that, then, you know, they may not be perfect, but they would be of moral character that could be in our military. Of course, what we're doing in our military now and with our foreign policy, we're desperate for people. We're putting anybody and everybody in. You know, age doesn't matter and moral character doesn't matter. So I think this is one of the reasons we end up with people in the military doing things that are rather despicable and has nothing to do with their sexual orientation. Well,
one thing's for sure, and I believe this as a Christian, God will not bless an army or a military that's full of unrepentant practicing homosexuals and adulterers and fornicators. In fact, the code of the Military Justice Code actually does address such acts, but of course it's not. Nobody pays any attention to it anymore.